So, Kang, if you can kick that off for us by reading the quote from Marianne Williamson for today. Can you read that? You
Yeah,
need it bigger?
no, it's fine. I can see. Okay, I'll start. Love is what we were born with. Fear is what we have learned here. The spiritual journey is the relinquishment or unlearning of fear and the acceptance of love back into our hearts. Love is the essential existential fact. It is our ultimate reality and our purpose on earth. To be consciously aware of it, to experience love in ourselves and others is the meaning of life by Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, great quote. Love is the meaning of life. So maybe we can bring that into our podcast next week. She's obviously a great, probably the best known Course in Miracle teacher living in the world, I would say. She really popularized the course in the 80s when she wrote this book called A Return to Love, Reflections on the Principles of the Course in Miracles. And she was befriended by Oprah Winfrey. So she got on the Oprah show, and obviously that then made her famous, and her book went viral, and she's become a really well-known spiritual teacher. In fact, she ran for president for the Democratic Party in America. She wasn't chosen, but she has political ambitions as well. Anyway, so what she does here is highlights the dichotomy between fear and love, and that we must choose between these two seemingly opposite forces by letting go of or unlearning what we have learned from fear, which automatically allows love to return to our awareness. So the formula for experiencing divine or unconditional love consistently is really very simple. It's about training your mind to become increasingly aware of any fear. This is the vigilance that Yeshua talks about. And then once you are aware of it, you can let it go. So it's an awareness, and then it's a choice to let it go. A lot of teachers and teaching say awareness is enough. But the Course is saying, no, it's not. You need to also make a choice, a right-minded decision to let go or forgive any form of fear. And he uses fear as a placeholder, a general term, to refer to any negative, limiting, contracted thought or emotion blocking your awareness of love's presence. Okay? So that could be anxiety, it could be anger, attack thoughts, it could be guilt, sinful thoughts, it could be frustration, it could be jealousy, and so on. All of that would be a form of fear, as Yeshua uses the term fear. So it's really just a placeholder for the ego, as love is a placeholder for the Holy Spirit's thought system. So you might ask yourself, well, how exactly do I cultivate the awareness that's required for step one of the process and release the toxic thoughts and emotions in steps two? And the answer is simple, although it does take time. It's just have a practice. So in the Art of Letting Go course and program, we have an ideal daily schedule. It's included in the daily emails every day, just in case you're not familiar. It's always in the second half of the email. So starting about midway through it, your spiritual schedule for today, and there it's all laid out. So you have everything that is recommended in an ideal spiritual day. Now, and most people don't do this. Very few people will do even the majority of this. But it's there as a menu. It's like, okay, saying, look, if you want a structure, here it is for you. There are all the options. You can dive into this at any point, and there's spiritual material for you to look at. Maybe you just do your higher purpose, you do your surrender prayer, and you do the lesson for the day, and that's your spiritual practice. But doing that is a lot better than doing nothing. That's the point. If you can get in, an hour's guided letting go theta meditation, then brilliant. But if you can't, do what you can do, maybe you can just do half an hour and so on. So the ideal daily schedule has three main mind training methods in it. First of all, reading. So it's reading these daily posts that I post in the emails and the Telegram messages. It's reading the related workbook lesson and the recommended section of the text for the days. We just click on that link. There it opens up the PDF, and there you go. All right, there's your reading in the original and the alternative format. We'll do this just now of the lesson, and there's your recommended section of the text, which is section 1 of chapter 16. We're on also in the original and alternative form. So that's a core component, actually doing the reading. Really recommend you read both of those documents every day in their original and translated forms. The original is designed to if you do the translation of it, the alternative, it's designed to give you a different perspective of the original so that you understand the original in a different light, from a different perspective, have a deeper understanding of it. So I would read them together. Read the top paragraph and then read the bottom one and compare. And especially if you don't understand something, if you read the alternative, often it will shed some light on what you didn't understand. So that's component one, reading. Then secondly, meditating and taking breath breaks. So I recommend you listen to the longer meditations that I post to the Telegram group every day, or they're here. So if you click on there you go. So welcome to this. There's the start of the meditation, or there's a shorter breath break. So which is just under 7 minutes. So that's all accessible from your email, or it's on the Telegram group as well. So however you want to get to the content, if email is your preferred medium, then it's there. Just have to scroll down if it's in Telegram. Again, it's in the stream of messages. So there you go. There's your 30 minutes. There's your 6 minutes. There's the lesson. There's the PDF of the lesson. And look up here. Oh, wait, I put it no down here. There's the reading from the text. So it's all there on either of those platforms, either email or Telegram. Meditating, taking these short breath breaks through the day is key. So the longer meditations are important, but arguably the shorter breath breaks are even more important because they keep you connected to your source. If you try and do these throughout the day and just take a 5-minute break to do them frequently, every hour or two during the day, you'll end up doing a lot of spiritual practice more than in the longer meditations, probably, or equivalent to if you're doing morning and evening. You could easily rack up half an hour, maybe even an hour, half an hour to an hour during the day of these shorter breath breaks. If they 5 minutes a piece and you do 6 of them, then you're at half an hour, right? So the idea is to do this in a deep way for a longer period, 15, 20 minutes in the beginning of the day to set yourself up for the day. Then you top yourself up during the day with a shorter breath break. So if you're tempted to believe in the ego, the breath breaks are designed to help you to let that temptation go and stay connected to your source. If you combine these, you'd probably you end up doing over an hour of meditation on the lessons. If you're doing both of them properly through the day. So maybe half an hour to 40 minutes on the longer ones, and then half an hour, at least maybe a bit longer, depending on how many breath breaks you do during the day. And there's how you make the lessons really current and present in your life. So I encourage both of you. You probably don't do the shorter breath breaks, but I encourage you to try and integrate it into your life. Say, okay, well, if I can do a few of these in the day, even 2 or 3. So at least do 1 breath break during the morning, 1 in the evening. That's going to break up the day, and it's going to help you stay connected throughout the day, rather than disconnecting for 12 hours between the meditation in the morning, the meditation in the evening. So meditating, taking short breath breaks is critical to the efficacy of the program. And then the final one is joining the live sessions and listening to recorded sessions. So I think, Lane, especially you do a lot of these live sessions. I'd encourage you to join this once a week. You know the value. The recordings are good, but you get more out of the live sessions, don't you? Lane, maybe you can come in there and just give your perspective on that. Because you've done probably the most live sessions.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest motivation, there's no doubt, because it's so easy to wane. This life takes over and the ego is very strong. And so I find the live is the bigger motivation for me personally. Yeah, that's what works for me.
Yeah, and it's interactive. So, whatever your issue is, you can then actually bring that into the session. You can talk
very helpful.
And you can get specific guidance on that issue. It's really, the principles are there. We can read the text, we can study the course. But if you don't apply them in situations that are coming up, then it's a bit pointless. The course is a theoretical exercise then, rather than being practically helpful. So it's about application to these situations. And often we need a bit of help with that. We get the thing is the ego wants to blind us to the truth, and that we have these blind spots. So we don't necessarily on our own. It's not always that easy to see it, and to apply the principles and to really let go. So in the live sessions, and at the moment they're fairly small, you get personalized attention. You get to look at the issues. Essentially, it's group coaching to help you to really look at the issue, apply the teachings, and get the lesson, to actually do the forgiveness in that situation as it arises. And that's what the course is designed to help you to do. So the live sessions just really help that process and to help facilitate that process, which is why I encourage people to do that rather than recorded. Recorded sessions are better than nothing for sure, but it's not interactive. So you then have to go, okay, well, I'm listening to recording and I've got to apply it to my life situation currently and make that connection myself. And that is doable for sure. But if I'm around to guide and facilitate that process, it's maybe easier, which is what the live sessions offer. So ideally, if you do all of these every day, you do the reading, you do the meditation using the all of the tools I've given you. The documents are there with the alternatives, the recordings of the meditations and the breath breaks are there, and then the live sessions. The idea is to facilitate that this is easy for you to do, so that you do it every day, and these three practices become the kind of foundation of your spiritual practice and therefore of your awakening process. Okay, so that brings us to the lesson for today. It's impossible to see two worlds. So yeah, just any comments or questions on any of this, or can we move on to the lesson?
Yeah, that's good, clear.
Yeah, no, it's quite clear. Thank you. And yeah, I'll start attending the weekly sessions.
Yeah, do that, Vikram. Yeah, it'll be great. Great to have you. Okay, so
and one quick.
Let's go into the recording let's go into today's lesson, which is lesson 130. So let me just bring it up. Okay, so we need to edit it. That's the text, that's the lesson. Don't know why it's not coming up there. It's coming up. Okay, so today's lesson is it is impossible to see two worlds, or it's impossible to perceive two realities as the alternative version of that, because the other world is not really a world, it's a reality. So I've changed that. Okay, so let's read it in the original and alternative. You can take turns doing that. So yeah, Elaine, if you can read the original of paragraph 1, sentence by sentence. Bakang, after Elaine's finished each sentence, she'll pause, then come in with reading of the alternative down below of that sentence, of that, and they labeled 1, 2, and so on. Okay, so you want to go for it, Elaine? Perception is consistent. Let me translate there.
Yeah, perception is consistent.
I tell you what we're going to do, because let's save some time. There isn't actually much to translate here. Why don't you just read it in alternative? So Elaine, you do the first one, can do the second one.
Right.
Not much translation, except that the alternative is in the first person rather than the third person.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Perception. Yep. Perception is consistent. Something just a bit bigger. What I perceive reflects my thinking, and my thinking only reflects my choice of what I want to see. My values are determiners. Keeps moving in and out. What? Determiners of this. For what I value, I must want to perceive. Believing what I perceive is really there. No one. Oh, sorry, it's just I'm pinching it out and it keeps going back in. 2 seconds. Right. I wonder why it's doing that. What, is there any reason why it keeps moving?
I'm not sure. Maybe it's to do with your tablet.
Yeah, because I'm sort of, it goes in very tiny, and then I pinch it out, right? I'll try. And everyone perceives what they believe they want.
So what's he saying there in a nutshell?
Well, it's just what we're perceiving out there is what we're thinking. It reflects what we're thinking. And the thinking only reflects the choice of what we really want to see or what we want to see. So our values are determined from this. And everybody perceives what they believe they want. So it's never consistent.
Yeah, so we're projecting our own stuff onto the world. So whatever I value, I then project that onto the world, and everything that I perceive in the world is now according to that internal set of values. So as within, so without. As a man thinketh, so he perceives. That's really the teaching, which is a fundamental principle of the course, saying reality is primarily internal rather than external. So we have the external stimuli. Let's have a look at this in the integral model. External stimuli, and then most people go, well, it's the external that's making me unhappy or excited or desiring something or whatever. But actually, that's not true. It's your interpretation of it that's doing that, yeah? So you have all these external projections going on. In the collective, the it's and the it is your own personal reality, your own personal experience of life. And most people go, well, so something's happened out here. Well, now I'm upset or I'm angry or I'm desiring or I'm fearing or whatever because of what's happening. So my thoughts, my emotions, my state of mind is a consequence of the external world. And that's a total inversion of the truth, which is what the ego has tried to do by projecting it all out. It's trying to make us believe that actually the world is determining our state of mind. Of course, is reversing that illusion saying, no, that's false. Actually, our state of mind is primary, and our state of mind is what's being projected onto the world and is what's creating our reality of the world. So however we perceive the world, it's actually got less to do with what's external and more to do with our thoughts, our emotions, and our states of mind, and our chosen set of values, right? Because this is all choice. Those thoughts, those emotions, those states of mind, it's a choice. So from being outside in, we're now inside out. The course profoundly shifts our locus of control from being external to being internal. Because if you can change your mind, you can change your thoughts, you can change your emotions, you can change your mind, then you change your perception, then you change your reality, right? And you can do that instantly. That's why there's no order of difficulty in miracles, because instantly you can change your mind about anything that's going on in the world. It doesn't mean on the level of form it's going to change instantly. It just means your perception of it has changed. But as quantum mechanics makes clear, there is no reality in the absence of observation. So your perception is the reality of it. You see how you change reality instantly by just changing your mind, because that changes your perception. Fundamental, course principle that he's expounding here. Really important to understand this, because it's the foundation of the whole teaching. If you think the world is outside in, and your world is determined by external events, your internal state of mind is a product of what's happening outside of you, you are forever going to be a slave to your ego and to the external world. And there's no chance of any lasting happiness, because you're trying to manipulate and control the world, the external world, and to make you happy, when actually you just have to change your mind about the world. As Yeshua says in the course, the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement, or the at-one-ment, as we say, for himself or herself. So this is changing your mind about the dream world. And that's where the salvation lies. And it's a very, very simple idea, very simple principle. It's at the heart of every spiritual teaching. It's authentic. Every great spiritual teacher has taught the same thing, but very few people have actually realized this, and even fewer can actually practice it and do it. Very few people who have a perfectly internal locus of control. Those people we call enlightened. If you're not affected at all by the external world, and you realize that your thoughts, emotions, and states of mind are entirely your own choice, irrespective of what's going on in the world, that's enlightenment. That's awakening. That's complete forgiveness, complete letting go, Course says. Okay, so is that clear? Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Really, really, powerful principle in that first paragraph. So let's go on to number 2 then and see what he has to say. So Bakang, if you can read that in the alternative from Yet Can I Really Hate?
Yet can I really hate and love at once? Can I desire what I do not want to be real? Can I choose to perceive a world of which I'm afraid? Fear must make blind, for this is its weapon. That which I fear to know, I cannot know. Therefore, love and true perception go hand in hand. But in negative awareness, fear obscures what is really there.
Bakang, any thoughts on that?
Okay. Yeah. I think here what it's saying is that we cannot really, have love and hate at the same time. We know that primarily love is the only, perfect state that exists. And hate is just a projection from our perception. And also that, acting, in the opposite of love brings out fear, which actually makes you blind. And making you blind, in a sense that, you don't actually get to realize the full perfect awareness of love.
Yeah, well said. So love and true perception. Love and perception go hand in hand. I added in the true because perception can be guided by either the Holy Spirit or the ego. So true perception is guided by the Holy Spirit. Normal perception is egoic. In fact, the ego invented perception. Perception doesn't exist in eternity. It only exists in the dualistic world of time and space. This perception seemingly makes what is in our mind external to us. Projection makes perception, says the Course. There's a great, let's have a look at this. So, chapter 21, introduction to chapter 21, it's a couple of paragraphs. Reason and perception. Just read that, Elaine. You can read the first paragraph for us. You're muted, Elaine. Maybe she's not there. Elaine,
Yes,
you there?
yes, I'm here. Yes, yeah. It's just
Yeah.
right. Hopefully this doesn't keep going because it keeps going
Well,
in.
I can make it bigger for you if you want.
Yeah, could you?
Just
Yes.
pinch it out.
Yeah.
You can just make it bigger. Maybe. Right, is that big enough?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
So the top paragraph you want me to read, yeah?
Yeah. Paragraph, yeah.
Projection makes perception. The world you see is what you give it, nothing more than that. But though it is no more than that, it is not less. Therefore, to you it is important. It is the witness to your state of mind, the outside picture of an inward condition. As a man thinketh, so does he perceive. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. Perception is a result and not a cause. And that is why order of difficulty in miracles is meaningless. Everything looked upon with vision is healed and holy. Nothing perceived without it means anything. And where there is no meaning, there is chaos.
Okay, so thoughts on that?
Just saying projection makes perception. So the world you see out there is what you give it, but it's not more or less. So it's basically, it's a witness to your state of mind.
So you look at the diagram internally. We have a state of mind that's egoic. We've disconnected from our source, from love. So we have sin and guilt and fear and attack in our mind. Then we project that out onto the world, and we create a world like this, where apparently that attack and that sin and that guilt comes back to haunt us in the form of attack and punishment. So projection then makes the perception of a cruel external world, which now seemingly is fearful, it's threatening, and then that seems to justify the sin, guilt, fear, and attack, which is already in our mind. And so it gets perpetuated. And so we get caught up in a feedback loop. That's what he's saying here. Projection makes perception. Perception reinforces projection. You get that? And that's the ego's story. That's how it perpetuates itself and creates and recreates itself over and over again through the cycle of projection, perception, Perception reinforces projection, which means you project more of your garbage onto the world, which means you perceive it as real. You just get caught up in that, and around you go. And he says, these are the chains that bind us. They bind us into the illusion of the ego. It's really important you understand how the mechanism of the illusion works so that you can free yourself from it. If you understand this, then you're not going to be fooled by the projections anymore. And you're going to realize you have a choice as to how you perceive them. You can change your mind and you can perceive them differently. That's what the Course is trying to teach us to do. So I can change my mind. I can accept love instead of fear, even though I'm seeing fearful projections. I can forgive them or let them go. I can accept love back into my mind, and I can change my perception. And in doing that, what have I done? I've just restored my mind to its original state of mind. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So really, really, really important lesson. Very, very, very fundamental principles in the Course of how does this illusion actually work? How does the ego work? And then, therefore, we have a choice. You can choose to believe in the ego, allow your mind to be controlled from the outside, or you can choose to take control of it and choose to change your mind no matter what seemingly happens. So look, I choose love irrespective of what's happening in the external. And that process of choosing love, irrespective of circumstances that seem to be opposite to love, is forgiveness. Is it making sense? Is it clear? It's not rocket science. It's really actually really, really simple. But we have to do it. It's completely counterintuitive to the ego's thought system, which is why it's difficult. Because the ego says, no, you're upset because of this and this and this happening in the external world, in your life. And that seems to be the case. But the seeming and the truth are not the same. That's part of the illusion of the world. Okay. Happy to go on to number 3 then. So, Ghislaine read the last one. You read this, Bakang. What then can fear project upon the world?
What then can fear project upon the world? What can I perceive with negative awareness that is real? Truth is eclipsed by fear, and I only imagine what remains. Yet, what can be real in blind imaginings born of panic? What must I want to cause this to be shown to me? What do I want to keep in such a dream? I think here it's basically, explaining the confusion that's actually in fear, or not being in the state of love. That there's nothing that is positive that actually can come out from a perspective of fear or having negative awareness.
Yeah, the original is darkness. I think negative awareness is more powerful. Because what does darkness actually mean? It means a negative awareness. It means an awareness that negates the truth of love and makes illusions real. But what can I really perceive with that negative awareness? It's real. Negative awareness just says that what is true and what is real isn't real. And makes something else, it brings something else in to replace what it's denied. So it's all illusory. And it only has an existence because it negates or denies the truth. You see why the ego is fundamentally negative. It only exists because it negates the truth of love. And it derives its whole apparent existence from that negative awareness. So how can that be real? Only what it's negating or denying is real. The negation of truth can't be real or true. It must be false. But if we believe in negative awareness, then truth will be eclipsed by fear. And I only imagine what remains. So then we have a world of illusion. that's imaginary, that's projected out from the state of fear onto the canvas of time and space. And then we have all these blind imaginings born of panic. So what does he mean by that? Blind imaginings born of panic. Any idea?
False perceptions from being in a fearful state of mind.
Yeah. So where does the fear come? I'm going to show you this diagram. Where does the fear originate from?
From the
It's in the
ego,
diagram, so the answer's there.
from the ego consciousness
Yeah.
or the separation.
Yeah. And then if you follow it down, once you believe that you've really separated from God and you really are an individual self, you must feel guilty for the sin of destroying God or love or oneness or being or pure formless awareness, whatever you want to call it. But in order to exist as an individual, you have to destroy oneness, don't you? You see the problem?
Yes.
So there's the negative awareness that gives the ego some kind of existence. Oh, I can only exist because I've negated or destroyed perfect love, perfect oneness. And so I must feel guilty for that because of this terrible sin. I think I've done this terrible thing of destroying oneness. Now I feel the guilt for it. And the guilt demands punishment. If I feel guilty, then I must fear punishment, which is a false expectation of punishment appearing real. So that's where fear arises from the separation. But it's important you understand the steps that we took to get to fear. Yes, there's a separation, but then how does that result in fear? Because I believe I'm an individual self, because then I believe I'm guilty for the sin of destroying God or love, and then I believe I'm going to be punished by this fearful, wrathful, separate, vengeful God that I've invented. This isn't the real God, but this is now what my ego's created. And that is, the God of the Old Testament, this fearful God of wrath and vengeance. If you don't do what I say, you're going to be punished. And it's all very fearful. And so blind imaginings of panic born is all of this panic, this fear that comes from the delusion that you really have separated and that you're guilty for that. And now the ego says, imagine in the seminal moment of all this kicking off in the mind's now in a state of panic. And it's going, oh my God, I've done this terrible thing. God's going to kill me. What am I going to do? And the ego says, well, just run away. Run far away from this vengeful God that you've now invented, which doesn't even exist, but you believe it. So it just exists in your mind. You're going to go into another reality where you can run away and you can hide from God. Blind imaginings of panic born. That's the projection of guilt and fear outwards that miscreated the entire physical universe, which scientists call the Big Bang. In that explosion of energy, all the intensity of emotion, the guilt and the sin and the fear and the blind panic. If ever you felt in a panic, oh my God, I just got to get out of here. Just run, fight or flight response. Imagine that amplified by, 1,000,000 times. And then you get something of an inkling of what this panic was like, that created the projection of guilt and fear outwards, that created the physical universe. That projection of the mind then created what we know as energy, which is really just projected thought, now projected outwards into the universe of time and space that we've invented. And you get all these separate forms that now seem to exist. But all of that came from that original split in the mind, the original projection. So this is a very psychologically sophisticated model of how the world actually started, how the universe began, how the world came about. That actually aligns with science. It aligns with quantum mechanics as well as cosmology, the Big Bang theory. These were the major theories, and the theory of relativity that Einstein came up with. This explains all of that. It's the reason why it all happened. And science can't explain this. At time t equals 0, scientists don't have a clue. Before the Big Bang, they have no idea, because you can't model and frame and create, mathematical equations out of oneness. So there's nothing really to say there. You can't explain that. It's only after t equals 0, i.e. after the first idea of separation, that it was then projected out. So we had the idea of separation, all this kicked off in the mind, which would have happened fairly quickly, although there was no time to measure it. And then we get the Big Bang, and at that moment, that seminal moment where the mind started that projection and projected out all of the matter and energy into the universe in a single instant, that was when time started. And that's the beginning of the known physical universe. Okay, so does this make sense? And do the metaphysics behind then this make sense? It's important you understand this.
Yes, Jono, it does. I just have one question, around, what was written in the Old Testament in terms of, the God being the God of vengeance and, punishment. Could it be then that, those that interpreted the Old Testament, or those that wrote it, were actually maybe writing from a place of fear? Or, is the world just interpreting the Old Testament, differently from that separation, state?
Yeah, there's no doubt, the writers of the Old Testament had a lot of fear in their minds. They were largely in the ego, not always, but a lot of those books were written. We don't know who wrote them, right? They lost in antiquity. They were written 1,000 to 100 years before 500 years. I think it was about then, between 500 and 1,000 years BC, before Christ was born. So we don't know who wrote them. We don't know what state of mind they were in. But anyone who's perceiving God as this fearful, wrathful, vengeful God, a God of punishment, who's going to punish now his errant children, is misunderstanding God. He's not understanding that God is perfect love, pure formless awareness of perfect love, perfect oneness, and actually fear and guilt and sin and wrath and vengeance. These are ideas of the ego. So this is a false God that was invented by these people out of their fear. So when we say God created us in his image and likeness, actually it's the reverse. We created this fearful, wrathful, vengeful God in our image and likeness. Out of our ego, we project this out and we create this fearful, wrathful God of vengeance, which isn't true. This is a false God. This doesn't really exist except in our own consciousness. But if we make it exist, then it can be very powerful, as we've seen. People who believe in this concept can do all kinds of very horrible things to themselves and to others out of that consciousness. And that's been going on a long time in human history. So people then say, well, how can it be unreal? It doesn't even exist, so what's doing it? It's the power of your mind being misused that's doing it. Your God-given awareness or mind is now being misused, and the ego's got you to believe in guilt and sin and fear and attack. And now you have to project, if you believe that, you have to project your guilt outwards to get rid of it. And so you project it on to other people. And that's where accusation, blame, and attack come in, which is just projecting your subconscious guilt, and you're trying to get rid of it, but actually you're not ever going to get rid of it. The more you project it out, the more it seems real to you. So it's actually strengthened when you project it. It's just asking us to look at this whole system, realize what it is, what it's really for, and then let it go. Okay. Is that clear? Happy with that?
Yes, thank you.
Now, does that answer your question?
Yes, no, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Elaine, any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, no, that's, yeah.
You've been through this before, but You know,
Yeah,
you
no, it's
can't
good.
really go through it enough times because we have
No,
to
of
keep
course.
reminding ourselves. And every time you do it, see, you do it from a different perspective. You get a subtle, a different understanding. We're talking projection, perception. You look at it again. Each time I explain it, I'm like, yeah, you know, this makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it? I haven't seen a model that explains the origin of the universe and the world in the same way that makes sense. There aren't really many. You know, the science doesn't have a model. Modern science just says, well, it all came about in a blinding flash we call the Big Bang, and we have no idea why that happened. But that's okay. We'll just forget about that, and we'll just carry on from the moment of the Big Bang, time t equals 0, and we'll then explain how it all evolved and how. So science is really concerned with the how. Philosophy is concerned with the why. Why did it happen? That's the big question. And this theory answers that and explains why it happened. And then it changes your perspective on everything that's happened, doesn't it? Seemingly happened. You go, well, if you understand the why, the how becomes a lot less important. Why are you getting consumed with the how of it? It's useful to understand, but don't get lost in how, which is what scientists do, because that's just illusion. The how makes it all real. Okay, well, we assume it's real, and then we dedicate our minds to describing how this has all happened, and we forget that actually the truth behind it is that it never really happened. That actually this is just a delusion in the mind. It's a false belief going on in the mind. Okay. So all good. Let's go back to the lesson then. Number 4. Fear has made everything I think I perceive. Elaine, I think it's your turn. You can read that kindly.
Fear has
Can
made.
you read number 4, Elaine?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yeah.
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 Can hear you
Fear
now.
has made. Sorry, it's gone small again.
All right. Okay. Let me see if I can make it bigger for you. It's because we're in a different app. Zoom in. Let's take it to 150%. There you go. Okay. So big enough?
Yeah, that's better. Fear has made everything I think I perceive, all separation, all distinctions, and the many differences I believe make up the world. They are not there. Love's enemy has made them up. Yet love can have no enemy, and so they have no cause, no existence, and no consequence. I can value them, but they will remain unreal. I can seek them, but will never find them. Today I will not seek for them, nor waste this day in seeking what cannot be found. So it's just talking about fear and how we've made everything we think and perceive. It's all about the separation and the many differences in the world that aren't there. And the enemy of love has been made up by them. And yet love can have no enemy. And so there's no cause and no existence and no consequence. We can value them, but they will remain unreal. And we can seek them, but we won't find them. So it's asking us today to stop seeking and stop wasting our day seeking what can't be found.
Let's go back to the diagram. You look at what we do. We assume all of this is real. We then have all these fairly dire consequences going on of separation in our world and in our life. We judge it all as real. And the Course is saying that none of this is true, right? It's all based on a false idea that you can actually separate from your source. So none of these consequences down at the bottom. Now you've gone down the whole ladder of separation. You're now living as an individual, seeming human, living a helpless, innovative little life, which is an acronym for hell, as you see, of limitation, lack, loneliness, suffering, and inevitably death. The world seems to be a very fearful place. It seems to be unfair, cruelly treating you, and so on. But none of that's true. None of it's true because the idea behind it all of separation isn't true. So you make it all real, and the ego tries over and over to make all this stuff real. But if we can see through the illusion of it, we realize none of it's real. Fear isn't real in any form. None of this is real. Anything in the red boxes and the red arrows, all of it's unreal because it comes from one tiny, mad, false idea. And so what is false is unreal. Everything that then comes from that false idea must also be false and unreal. That's the logic of the Holy Spirit. So whatever you're experiencing now down the bottom of the ladder as a helpless, innovative little person living this little life of limitation, lack, loneliness, suffering, and inevitably death in a world that seems to be very scary is illusion. It's not true. None of it's true. You know, no aspects, no phases, no part of this dream is true or real. It's all part of the projection of sin and guilt that made up the whole world. And our job is really just to realize that the reinterpretation of the ego's dream by the Holy Spirit or the remembrance of perfect love just reinterprets all of this and says, well, this is all just illusory. Actually, it's all designed to help us awaken to the truth of perfect love again and return our minds back to the state, because we realize, well, this is a total shit show, if you pardon my French, but it's a good way of describing it. This is never going to work. I can never make a dream of negative awareness based on a false idea. I'm never going to make this work. So that my only real chance of salvation is to get out, is to leave this place behind. And I do that by reinterpreting the ego's dream or forgiving it, letting it go, as the Course calls it, to restore my mind to this awareness of perfect love. And when that's finally done, then the dream of separation is gone. It's nowhere, and I simply rest in God. I rest in this pure formless awareness of perfect love for eternity, which doesn't mean endless time. It just means no time, right? There's no time because the separation never happened. So there's just this eternal awareness and nothing else. And that eternal awareness and nothing else is what we call God. When we look at it here in levels, that's level 1, God, Father, heaven, truth, knowledge. Course calls it the universe as well. Revelation, oneness, being, pure formless awareness of perfect love, source, spirit, life, reality, essence, presence, the now, Brahman, Nirvana, Samadhi, whatever you want to call it. It's that non-dual state. No illusions, no duality exists there. And that's where the Course is aiming to restore our minds to. But while we're here, our mighty function is to forgive or change our mind, change our perception of all the worldly events and circumstances, people, places, things, events, circumstances, situations, traumas, successes, failures, and all the experiences that we seem to have in time and space. Our only job is to change our mind about those so that we have true perception, we reinforce our true self or a higher awareness, and we don't need to go back into a false version of ourselves anymore to get a sense of identity. Okay. So, clear? Any thoughts or comments, questions on number 4?
That's clear, yeah.
We go to number 5. Become.
Questions?
Cool. If you can read number 5, I'll turn it to that'd be good.
It is impossible for me to perceive two different realities which have no overlap of any kind. If I seek for the one, the other will disappear, but one of them will remain in my awareness. They are the range of choice beyond which my decision cannot go. The real and the unreal are all there is for me to choose between and nothing more than these options. I think it's trying to say that, from these two worlds, they cannot overlap. So you can only see, one world. And from that as well, there's just one world that truly exists. And our duty is actually to choose, the real instead of the unreal. Are you able to hear me, Jono or Elaine?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a pause,
A
isn't it?
glitch there.
Yeah.
I'm hearing you. Sorry, I was just
Okay.
muted. All good. Well said. So these are the choices. It's just you just make it really, really clear for us what our choices are. And we can't see both at the same time. Well, so one thing you can't do, you can't see love and fear simultaneously. You can vacillate between them. You can alternate. You can go, oh, I can see that, and then I can see that. And we do quite a lot of that as we're awakening. There's going to be this vacillation. But you can't see both at the same time. I'll illustrate this actually. It's quite well illustrated in this diagram. So have a look at this these boxes. Where are we? Somewhere over here. Where are we? Giveness and writing. There we go. Thinking up the box. Yeah. So look at those boxes. The one on the left, particularly. So if you look, you can see two perspectives on that box, but you can't see them at the same time. Yeah. So there's one perspective where the box is kind of coming out of the page towards the left. So that's the back wall. There's another perspective where that one is the top. And you're looking down. So you've got a helicopter view. Do you see those two perspectives? One's like you're in the same plane as the box. There's a box like that, and it's coming out to the left. And then you switch it, and you can see that as the top. That same, what was the back wall now becomes the top. You see that, the roof. But if you blink, you can only see one at a time. Notice that. It switches. So just try blinking a bit. You'll see one. Generally, people see one more than the other, but you can alternate. Do you see that?
I can see one more than the other.
You
Yeah.
see both.
Yeah.
And if you blink, sometimes you'll see one, and then you blink, and then you see the other when you open your eyes again.
Sure. Yes.
But you can't see both at the same time. You notice that?
No. Yeah.
You can't hold both in mind at the same time. It's not possible. So it's one perception or another. You're going to see one view of it or another, even though both exist as possibilities. You see that? So it's that's the way it is with spirit and ego. Both are possibilities in this world of illusion, but you can't see both simultaneously. And this is why the spirit and the ego will never agree, because you can't have both perspectives simultaneously. They disagree with each other. The person who says, "No, I'm seeing, this is the reality. It's a box coming out like this." The other person says, "No, that's the top. That back thing is actually the top." And they'll never agree until they see the other's perspective. Once you've seen both, then you go, "Okay, I see." The Course is saying, though, only one of them is true. And you must choose which one is true. That's what forgiveness helps you do. But you can't see both perspectives simultaneously. Okay. So let's go on to number 6 then.
Yeah. Today, I will not attempt to compromise where none is possible. The world I perceive is proof that I have already made a choice as all-embracing as its opposite. What I want to learn today is more than just the lesson that I cannot perceive two realities. It also teaches that the one I perceive is quite consistent from the point of view from which I perceive it. The world I perceive is fragmented because it stems from the one emotion of fear and reflects its source in everything I perceive. It's just asking us today to not compromise. The world we perceive is proof that we have made it by our choice as all-encompassing as its opposite. So we can't perceive two realities. So it's teaching us that there is only one, and this one is the consistent from the point of view from which we perceive it. So the world is fragmented, but it stems from fear, and it reflects its source in everything that we perceive.
Yeah, well said. So the whole world is based on this false thought system. If it was all kicked off by one tiny mad idea, the entire thing is a projection of that idea. And everything that you perceive here, everything that seems to be real is unreal, right? Because that idea was unreal. We've just got so lost in that idea that we've forgotten the truth that underlies that idea, which is pure formless awareness of perfect love, the truth which we denied to believe that idea in the first place. We got lost in our own delusions. And now our job in awakening is to find our way back to this original state of awareness, transcend all the illusions and go back home, go back to our original awareness, which is still there, but it's been covered over by all of these illusions. Okay, does that make sense? So really, really simple. It's not anything we don't know already, but we reiterate it, we go over and over it again, because we need to be reminded. Very easy when you're down here in the scrum of things and you're dealing with the difficulties of life, such as you're talking about your termites in your roof and so on. You forget, oh, I've got to deal with this, and I'm dealing now with termites, and I've got workmen who are dishonest and so on and so on. You forget that this is all part of a construct. You're down at the bottom of the ladder of separation in hell. And if you allow your perception to be governed by that, then this is where the ego will keep you. And there's no hope in that. There's no salvation from that. Your only hope is to perceive it correctly and awaken from it and return your mind to pure formless awareness of perfect love. And that's your only real purpose in life. Your only purpose, the only meaning of life is to use everything in the world for your awakening. And that's what forgiveness is. And that's what forgiveness does. Okay, so that brings us to the meditation. Shall we do a meditation on this?
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll guide you through this. We'll practice it in a meditation for 15 or 20 minutes. And then we can continue with the text if you want, or we can call it a night, up to you. Okay, so let's do a med. So just Making yourself comfortable, sitting with your feet shoulder width apart, your back straight, up your hands in your lap. Close your eyes. And start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. You're breathing in, you're noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. The subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clench the sphincter energy in. Pull the energy up the spine, into your heart center. Draw it up into the crown of your head. Pausing at the top of the inhale. Scan your mind. For any thoughts going on there at the moment, so anything that's current in your mind, anything that's going on in your life. And it's just saying to us, this is the thought, today's lesson, the thought that ends all compromise and doubt. And we go beyond them all as one. All these compromises and doubts, because they're all the same. We will not make 1,000 meaningless distinctions. It's an attempt to bring with us a little part of unreality as we focus our awareness on finding only what is real. So set that intention. And just breathing in again, begin your searching for the other world or reality by asking for a strength beyond your own, recognizing what you're seeking. You do not want illusions. Comes with this meditation, with the willingness to let go of all the petty treasures of this world. So they may not seem petty to your ego, which may value them, it always does, but whether this is money, a special relationship, a better job, some material thing you want, a new car, a new house, a new dress, jewelry, perfume, clothing, and on it goes, right? It gets more and more petty. So my house isn't petty, I need to live in it. But the house isn't going to last for eternity. The house is a temporary home in this world, place where you can live and be comfortable while you awaken to the truth that you don't need physical structures to be home. The idea that a physical structure is your home is ridiculous in eternal awareness. How can you, who are just pure mind, be housed in a physical structure? And how can anything that is physical in this world meet your spiritual needs, which exist in the mind only? Trying to mix the realities, trying to find spiritual satisfaction, fulfillment, and truth from what is material, what is a product of the ego, and that can never work. That's why illusions will never work to satisfy you. So say instead that I wait for pure formless awareness of perfect love to help me, as I say to myself. Breathe in on this. It is impossible for me to perceive two realities. Therefore, I accept the strength pure formless awareness of perfect love offers me and perceive no value in this world, so that I may awaken to my freedom Original is, I may find my freedom and deliverance. Deliverance is awakening from the dream, awakening to our freedom with a capital F, because this is the truth of who we really are. So I exhale out on the truth of this and just have a sense of letting go of all of your illusions of value in this world. Whatever it is that comes to mind that you know in your heart of hearts, there's still a value there that you give these things, people, places, events, circumstances that make up the world. We value them. So you must perceive no value in this world. Because there is none. Perceive no value in this world so that I may awaken to freedom at last. And God will be there. Pure formless awareness, perfect love will be there. You get a glimpse, an inkling of this pure awareness that you really are. For you have called upon the great unfailing power that shall take this giant step with you in gratitude. So breathe that power in, allow it into every pore, every cell of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being. Called upon the great unfailing power. Take this giant step with you in gratitude. And nor will you fail to perceive its thanks expressed in tangible perception and truth. Say to yourself, I will not doubt what I will perceive today, for though it is perception, not the kind of seeing that my eyes alone have ever seen before. And I will know perfect love's strength that upholds me as I make this choice. Hi, John. We're just in a meditation, so if you want to join in. We're just doing the meditating on the lesson, and then we'll get into the text. So just getting quiet, going within. And tapping into this, to perfect love's strength that upholds you as you make your choice for truth over illusions. Breathing in and out through your nose, observing the breath, just to quiet your mind. Calmer and quieter your mind is, the more you're making the choice for truth. Just calm, quiet, peaceful awareness. Just by staying in this awareness. We are forgiving or letting go of the world and restoring our mind to the truth of who it is, what it is, and choosing true reality, the real world, so she calls it. Any temptations that still linger, anything you're tempted to value, anything you know, honestly, you're craving, you're wanting, you're desiring, any grievances you're holding on to as a result of expectations that haven't been met, remind yourself that you can dismiss these temptations easily today, whenever they arise. So look at them, breathe into them, and remember the limits of your choice. You can perceive only the real or the unreal, the false or the true. Perception is consistent with your choice, and so you will experience a helpless, innovative life, or the state of pure formless awareness as your reality. It's one or the other, but not both. You accept a little part of hell as real. A little part of this helpless, innovative life of victimhood and suffering is real. You've damned your eyes and cursed your perception. Perceive that you are a victim of a cruel world. Yet the release of heaven or pure formless awareness still remains within your range of choice to take the place of everything that hell would show to you, that victimhood shows me. My belief in victimhood will say. All I need to say to any part of the world of victimhood and pain, whatever form it takes, is this. To say this as you breathe it in. It is impossible to perceive two realities. I choose my freedom and awakening. And so this is not what I want. So any temptations, anything that's currently bothering you, plaguing you, you've got desire, you've got expectation, or you've got grievances going on about anything. Just remind yourself that it's impossible to perceive two realities. I'm either going to see the world of victimhood and suffering, or I'm going to see the real world of freedom and awakening. So choose your freedom and awakening in this moment. And that means you must reject the world of victimhood and pain completely, entirely. You can't have a little bit of victimhood and pain, also have freedom and awakening. They contradict each other. Realize that. It's impossible to perceive and live in these two opposite realities. It's impossible to perceive two opposing realities. So I choose my freedom and awakening, and I rest in that freedom for a couple of minutes. Deep silence. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax, and be still. And find your freedom in the present moment. It's always been there. It's in your mind. It's accessible. It's in your awareness, available anytime, at any moment. So you just have to choose that it be this minute, the now, the only time there really is to access this awareness and experience it fully. So choose that now. So I choose my freedom and awakening, and I reject everything else, because I can only perceive one reality, not two. So it is. So I'll just be quiet for a couple of minutes, just rest in this quiet stillness, this deep peace. A couple of minutes of deep silence and freedom when you just experience the freedom that pure formless awareness, that perfect love offers you. Right now, for the next 2 minutes of deep silence. So, if any meaningless thoughts and illusions come to tempt you from the world of victimhood and pain, he likes to bring these things up when you're trying to connect with your source. Remind yourself the limits of your choice. You can perceive only the unreal, the real, the false, or true. Perception is consistent with your choice. So I will experience a helpless, enervated life or the state of pure formless awareness as my reality, but I cannot experience both. So right now, I'm choosing the state of pure formless awareness, and I'm relinquishing, renouncing, letting go of the helpless, enervated life that the ego wants me to live. Exhale it out, blow it out, the breeze of your breath, to the nothingness that it really is. Have a sense of just resting in what lies beyond it. So just rest in this deep peace, pure formless awareness. Rest in God. And be a formless awareness for a minute or two of freedom, more worldly concerns, more illusions. Just enjoy that experience of freedom. Give yourself wholly and completely and fully to this experience for the next minute or two. So just gently coming back now. This very deep connected state into an awareness of your body and the breath via those into the world. On the count of three, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pause at the top of the inhale, scan your mind. Smile. Remind yourself, today's teaching, today's lesson is impossible to perceive two opposing realities. I choose my freedom and awakening. And so this world and anything in it is not what I want. And just as you exhale, let go of anything that's still niggling in your consciousness. Any desires, grievances, fears, expectations, worries, and so on. Just drop it all. Realizing this is not what you want. Blow it all out with the breeze of your breath into the nothingness that it really is. It's going, gone, like a dark cloud or black smoke, being expelled. It's leaving you. It's going into the nothingness that it really is. Expel the last remaining air out. And just rest in still calm, quiet peace of mind. The gap between breaths is the gap between thoughts. Noticing that gap, expansive awareness, the peace, the joy, the love that's there. So choose to connect with us, choose to stay here, no matter what seems to happen. The rest of the day, remind yourself that I have a choice between two opposing realities and I choose my freedom and awakening. I do not want hell. It's a helpless, enervated little life of victimhood and suffering. I do not want that. So I'm letting that go, make that choice, that affirmation, blow it all out. Any temptation to hell, just letting that go with the breeze of your breath. And on the count of 3, so open your eyes. So take a moment just to look around, observing the world around you in this very calm, clear, peaceful way. So you can return your mind to the world, but not quite as attached to it. So a sense of non-attachment, detachment, and notice how peaceful this awareness is. So whatever you're looking at, all the objects that seem to exist in the world, the people, the places, the objects, the things, the events, look beyond them and find a deeper peace that underlies them. You close your eyes, notice that that peace is within you. So it's actually in your own awareness already. Now you open your eyes and you perceive everything from that same peace which is already within you. Truth is, the peace never left you. It was always there. It's just the illusion of these moving parts of the world that seems to disturb your peace. But actually the peace is always there. That's your true nature. That's your true reality. That's where your freedom lies. That's where awakening from the dream happens. And letting go of the idea that the external world offers you anything and can affect you in any way is salvation or awakening. And so it is said, and so it is done. Or amen. That's what amen means. So it is. So that brings us to the end of the meditation and the lesson. So all right. So stop to share. Let's welcome John. Hi, John.
Hi, Jono. Hi, Elaine. Hi,
Hi,
Marianne.
John.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. So we just finished the lesson and the meditation. I'm happy to carry on, do some text. Elaine, you want to join us, or you're going to head off?
Well, I can do a little bit of the text, but I have got this pet sit, so I'll just do a little and then just drop off. Depends on what others want to
Okay.
do.
No
Yeah.
problem. You're gonna stay with us? Okay, you there? Don't know. I can't say. I just realized my phone's expired, so let me just give it a quick charge. There we go. Yeah, so let's do some text. Today's text is
Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna stay with us, Bakan?
Yes, no, I'll stay. And then if it's maybe
Okay.
closer to midnight, then I might drop off.
Yeah, that's fine. We should be done in an hour. Oh, it's an hour and a half. It's not a particularly long section of the text. So let's dive into that, shall we? Does anyone need a break quickly, or we're happy to just push on?
Yeah.
Good. Push on. Okay, so let's go into share. Okay, and there is the text for today. Just trying to. I have to leave it to charge up for a bit before I can activate it. Okay, so this one is called the forgiveness of illusions. This chapter, and the section is called True Empathy. So what is empathy as opposed to compassion? We'll talk about that. Compassion is not actually a word he uses ever in the course. I think it's used once. in the entire course. He uses empathy rather. And so we'll discuss, is there a difference between compassion and empathy as part of our discussion. All right, so let's go for it then, shall we? John, do you want to kick it off with reading the original?
Yep. To
Just
empathize,
sentence by sentence, and then say, Elaine, you do the alternative.
does not mean to join in suffering, but that is what you must refuse to understand.
Yeah, it needs to be a bit bigger. Yeah, right. To emphasize does not mean to join in suffering, but that is what I must refuse to understand.
That is the ego's interpretation of empathy and is always used to form a special relationship in which the suffering is shared.
That is the belief in separation's interpretation of empathy and is always used to form a special relationship in which the suffering is shared.
The capacity to empathize is very useful to the Holy Spirit, provided you let Him use it in His way.
The capacity to empathize is very useful to the remembrance of perfect love, provided I let it use it in its way.
His way is very different.
Its way is very different.
He does not understand suffering and would have you teach it is not understandable.
It does not understand suffering and wants me to understand that it is not where are we? Yes, understandable.
When he relates through you, he does not relate through your ego to another ego.
When he relates through me, it does not relate through my belief in separation to another person's belief in separation.
He does not join in pain, understanding that healing pain is not accomplished by delusional attempts to enter into it, and lighten it by sharing the delusion.
It does not join in pain, understanding that healing pain is not accomplished by delusional attempts to enter into it, and lighten it by sharing the delusion.
Okay, and then Makanga, if you can read the alternative from the top and just give a quick summary of it once you've done that.
Okay. To empathize does not mean to join in suffering, for that is what I must refuse to understand. That is the belief in separation's interpretation of empathy and is always used to form a special relationship in which the suffering is shared. The capacity to empathize is very useful to the remembrance of perfect love, provided I let it use it in its way. Its way is very different. It does not understand suffering and wants me to teach that it is not understandable. When it relates through me, it does not relate through my separate self, to another person's separate self. It does not join in pain, understanding that healing pain is not accomplished by delusional attempts to enter into it and lighten it by sharing the delusion.
Okay, so what's he saying in this one?
I think he's saying that like the first line, to empathize does not mean to join in suffering. So empathy should actually rather be used to get back to perfect love and not to still lay in the effects of the separate self. Or we must also not use empathy or understand it to be, a separate feeling of suffering from one person to the other, but rather we must allow it to work through us as a connection to actually get to perfect love.
Yeah, well said. There's a difference between sympathy and empathy, isn't it? So sympathy is, oh, poor you, shame, you suffering, and then you join in the delusion. You join in the suffering, and that's what most people do unwittingly. Someone's had a misfortune, they've had something happen, they're ill, they're sick, they've had a death in the family. Oh, poor you, I'm so sorry. And they make it all real, right? And the more people do that, the more the suffering is intensified for the person, because it's like, oh, poor you, it's really happened. And I'm really so sorry for you. And that person joins in the pity party. Empathy says, no, none of this is real. It doesn't really make any sense. But I do understand why you might be experiencing pain, why you might be suffering. So there's an understanding of the ego's thought system that's causing another to suffer without believing in it yourself. That's what empathy is. So coming from a higher perspective, and from that perspective, you might be able to help the person out of their delusion. But if you enter into the delusion with them, then you're never going to do that. You're drowning with them. Like you're trying to save someone from drowning. Well, you have to stay out of the water, right? To save them, you got to pull them up, out onto the boat. There's that image I've used where Jesus is reaching down through the water and he's pulling Peter out of the water up into the boat. So, okay, well, he's got to stay above the water to do that. Sympathy would be, I'll go and I'll drown with you in the suffering and the pain. He's saying here at the end, understand healing pain is not accomplished by delusional attempts to enter into it and lighten it by sharing the delusion. Oh, poor you, I really feel for you. People even say this, I feel for you. Right, so I'm entering into the delusion. I'm feeling the same pain as you are. People call them empaths, actually. I think that's the name, isn't it? In spiritual circles, an empath really feels, but what he's explaining here as empathy is not that at all. It's like, yeah, I can understand it, but I'm not going to enter into the delusion and feel the pain with you, because that would be to make it real. So true empathy implies that you have forgiven or let go of the delusion in your own mind and now are in a position to help the other person do the same thing. Okay, is that clear to everyone?
We're saying
empathy and empathy.
We're saying that empathy is understanding what's happened to the person, but not colluding with it.
Don't believe in it. Don't believe their story. Sympathy is, oh, I believe your story. It's so terrible. Enter into the suffering. Oh, it's so terrible. And I go and I sympathize with you and I say all the right things. And of course, on one level, the person likes that. That feeds their victim identity, doesn't it? So people looking for sympathy are looking for people to do that because it perpetuates the ego, strengthens the story of the separate self. And that's one of the payoffs of being a victim, is you get people who'll sympathize. Oh, poor you, that's such a terrible story. And then that strengthens the victim identity, and they get some kind of pseudo love, right? They're getting some kind of special attention because of their misfortune, whatever that may be, which is special love. And this can become very strong. People can really believe in this delusion and get so attached to the victim identity that any attempt to free them, they see as hurtful. So you're actually trying to help the person awaken from this nightmare of victimhood, but the victim identity doesn't want any of it, and sees this as a threat. You might have experienced, this in your own lives in dealing with people, but this victim identity can become very, very strong, and they don't particularly want empathy as it's defined here. They want sympathy. If you don't give them sympathy, then they'll go, oh, you don't really love me, and you don't care about me, and you're being incredibly harsh, and and so on and so on. Because the ego doesn't want to be challenged. So it's not easy helping someone in that state, but you must try. You must try and be empathic rather than empathetic, rather than sympathetic. This is what he's saying in this section.
The trick is, though, being able
Okay.
to the trick is, Joe, isn't it, that being able to convey empathy without seeming aloof or not caring.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be empathetic to say to someone who's got cancer, well, this is all just a delusion. Just get up, and this cancer is just in your mind. Just, get up, you can leave the hospital, and if you decide to, you'll be healed. That wouldn't be particularly empathetic. And of course, students have been known to do that kind of thing, which then people just go, well, you're just not empathetic at all, and there's no caring, and who are you? And so it actually has the opposite effect. So it's subtle. It's an art form. You've got to really ask for guidance. Can you listen? I think listening to someone intently, giving them your full attention in the now is key. And if you really listen, you don't necessarily have to say much. There can be a connection just in the listening. That's where it starts. And then you might say, well, I understand completely where you're coming from. Let's say they've told you their whole sob story. I understand where you're coming from, and I understand from one perspective where you are now. This may seem to be this, but there is another way of looking at this. Are you open to that? And then it's their choice. They say, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? Like, yes, I'm curious, or no, I don't want to hear. You'll get a sense of whether they're open or not. If they're open, then you could say, well, look, it really, there's another way of looking at it. You can change your perspective of this. You can change your perception. And that's always a possibility. And if they're open to that, then the healing can begin. If not, then that's okay. Oh, yes, Haley. Great. Didn't know she was going to arrive. Let's welcome her. So this is someone I met a couple of days ago, actually. Hi, Haley. How are you?
I'm muted. Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
Our little community. There's a couple of others on board, as you see, who are all members. So you don't know John. Maybe everyone actually just wants to do show their videos quickly. So we all have a face behind the black screens. Welcome. So this is John. John's been doing this for about 4 years now, John.
Yep.
Elaine, 3 years. Bakang and I go back about 20 years, actually. In this community, 2 or 3 years. So yeah, some long-standing members. So what we're doing, Haley, is just studying. Mentioned something called A Course in Miracles. So this is a section of the text. Are you familiar with the book?
No,
Not.
that's not one that I've read.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just briefly, it's a teaching that came through a lady called Helen Schuckman in the 60s and 70s. She was a psychologist in New York City, and she kind of I wouldn't say channeled, but she transcribed, she wrote down, she was a scribe. She got this dictation from Jesus of this whole course. So she wrote it down, and then it got edited and it got published in 1976, I think, in three parts. This part that we study at the moment is the text, which is kind of the theory of it. And it goes into some very interesting aspects of truth versus illusion. Talks about, it's done in the Christian language, but what I've done is translated it. So, for instance, the Holy Spirit, which is a Christian term, becomes the remembrance of perfect love. So we just read the original, and then we read the alternative, and then we discuss it. Anything that comes up, any questions, you're welcome to ask, and I'll try and answer them as best I can, or someone else will answer them. And generally, what arises for people is, a deeper understanding of some of the nuances. So this particular section is called empathy. It's about true empathy. It's a new chapter, Forgiveness of Illusions. It's called True Empathy is what this is about. So we're just discussing what empathy is versus its opposite, which is sympathy, and how that works, how that plays out. So summary of the first paragraph is, well, maybe actually someone else summarize it. John, maybe can you summarize the difference between empathy and sympathy for Haley, and then we'll carry on with number 2.
Yes. So Haley, my understanding would be that that empathy is understanding where the person is, the situation that they're in, but not buying into their story in the sense of being complicit with them and kind of digging into the hole with them, which would be more of a sympathetic approach, which would be a little bit soft and it would effectively collude with the person who is suffering.
And not ultimately helping them. It's saying here, it does not join in the pain. Understand the healing pain is not accomplished by delusional attempts to enter into it and lighten it by sharing the delusion. So the idea of this teaching here is that pain, suffering, sickness, misery, death, all the things that plague humanity and this world are not real. These are delusions that we've made up, we've invented from our ego mind, which is a belief in a separate self. And all of these subtleties and nuances of empathy versus sympathy are designed to help us awaken from the delusion of that separate self. That's really what the course is designed to do. So it's a very powerful, profound teaching in awakening and enlightenment, whatever you want to call that. That is another approach. There's many different approaches, but this one is a non-dual approach. So it comes from the idea that you can't really reconcile the world of the ego and the world of spirit. They are opposites, and they always will be, and you have to make a choice between them. Okay, so should we crack on with number 2 then? Just make it interactive. If you want to do a bit of reading, Haley, you're most welcome to. You can listen. If you want to read with us, then read the original if you up for that. Just sentence by sentence, and then someone else will read the alternative sentence, and then you carry on with the original from number 2. Start with number 1, then pause, let someone else read the next one, then you read number 2, and so on. How does that sound? You game for that?
Let me find my glasses. I can't actually read it without my glasses on. I've just taken them off.
You can't read it. Okay.
No, that's bad. No, I need my second pair of eyes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll go do that. We'll crack on and just someone else do it, and then you can maybe come in
I'll listen
on
to
the
this
next
part
paragraph.
and then find my glasses for the next part.
Yes, yeah. We got paragraph 3 and 4, and there's a few paragraphs. So, all right. So, someone else, let's say Bakung, if you want to read the original, Elaine, you read the alternative kindly, and then John, you do the read the alternative in its full form and summarize it. That'd be great.
The clearest proof that empathy as the ego uses it is destructive lies in the fact that it is applied only to certain types of problems and in certain people.
The clearest proof that empathy, as the belief in separation, uses its destructive lies in the fact that it is applied only to certain types of problems and certain people.
These it selects out and joins with.
These it singles out and joins with.
And it never joins except to strengthen itself.
And it never joins except to strengthen itself.
Having identified with what it thinks it understands, the ego sees itself and would increase itself by sharing what is like itself.
Having identified with what it thinks it understands, the belief in separation perceives itself and would increase itself by sharing what is like itself.
Make no mistake about this maneuver. The ego always empathizes to weaken, and to weaken is always to attack.
I make no mistake about this maneuver. The belief in separation always empathizes to weaken, and to weaken is always to attack.
You do not know what empathizing means.
I do not know what empathizing means.
Yet of this you may be sure, if you will merely sit quietly by and let the Holy Spirit relate through you, you will empathize with strength and will gain in strength and not in weakness.
Yet of this I can be sure, if I will merely sit quietly by and let the remembrance of perfect love relate through me, I will empathize with strength and gain in strength rather than weakness.
John, if you can read the alternative from the top kindly.
Clearest proof that empathy as the belief in separation uses it is destructive. The clearest proof that empathy as the belief in separation uses it is destructive lies in the fact that it is applied only to certain types of problems and certain people. These it singles out and joins with, and it never joins except to strengthen itself. Having identified with what it thinks it understands, the belief in separation perceives itself and wants to strengthen itself by sharing what is like itself. I must make no mistake about this maneuver. The belief in separation always empathizes to weaken, and to weaken is always to attack. I do not know what empathizing means, yet I can be sure of this. If I will merely sit quietly by and let the remembrance of perfect love relate through me, I will empathize with strength and gain in strength rather than weakness.
Okay, so what's the
I find that first
saying in this one?
I find that first sentence a bit clunky, actually. The clearest proof that empathy The clearest proof that empathy is the belief in separation uses it is destructive lies. How is that supposed to read?
So the clearest proof that empathy as the belief in separation uses it is destructive. Right? So this is
Okay,
proof that it is destructive lies in the fact that it is applied only to certain types of problems and people. Maybe we could rephrase it. But if you read it in two parts, that's first part. Clearest proof that empathy as a belief in separation is destructive lies in the fact that it is applied only. So there's kind of a pause there. It is applied only to certain types of problems and people.
Is also using the word empathy in connection with the belief in separation, whereas, we start
saying as the belief in separation uses it, or how about interprets it? That would be better.
Yeah.
The belief in separation interprets it because it's an interpretation of what empathy means. So it's applied to certain types of problems and people. So it's special, it's specific, singles these out and unites with them. So you'll notice if someone is sympathizing with someone else, they have their own agenda going on. They are sympathizing because it suits their ego as well. So it never joins except to strengthen itself. What is every victim needs a persecutor, and they also need a sympathizer or a rescuer. That's the triangle. Persecutor, victim, sympathizer, or rescuer. So the rescuer has their own ego identity going on there, joining to strengthen itself because it's seeking to strengthen itself in and through that situation. That's always what the ego is trying to do. So having identified what it thinks it understands, now this belief in separation perceives itself, wants to strengthen itself by sharing what is like itself. So it shares delusions, it shares what's false. And so it's always empathizing to weaken. And to weaken is always to attack. Shall we, this is, again, translation, but if we changed empathizers here to sympathizers, maybe that would be clearer.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
Because it's not really empathizing. It's
not.
Interpretation of false interpretation of empathy, which then becomes something else. So it has its own name, sympathizers. To weaken. And to weaken is always to attack.
Yeah.
Close period aims as a belief in separations, interprets it is destructive. Maybe we just say there, which is sympathy. Yeah. So then we've clarified. I think that will be really helpful in helping people understand the difference, sympathy versus empathy. To weaken is always to. So sympathy weakens. Sympathy is not actually helpful at all. It just strengthens the ego. It strengthens the delusion of both people. It's saying, I don't really know what it means, but I can be sure of this. If I will let the remembrance of perfect love, the Holy Spirit, in other words, remembrance of perfect love relate through me, I will be able to emphasize with strength and gain in strength rather than weakness. So we need to be guided in what we say. And it's an art form. To really get this right it's quite subtle, and it requires someone who's really listening to guidance, because every situation is going to be different. One approach doesn't necessarily work for everyone. But we can be sure that we'll be guided if we open to that guidance. Okay, so yeah, any other comments, thoughts, or questions on that? Haley, how are you doing? Are you with us? Is this making any sense to you? It's all new and unfamiliar,
Yeah,
but
no, I'm here.
hopefully some of the ideas are.
Yeah, it it's a very different
resonating.
language to what I would use, but the sentiment I think is the same.
Yeah.
It makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. Well,
Just
this
like
is
I
why
said,
we
yeah,
do
different
the
language, different terminology.
yeah, this is why we change the terminology. You know, so there's the alternative versions, and you just see me editing that to try and make it more understandable. Because if you use the Christian terminology like Holy Spirit and God and Jesus and Christ and so on, for a lot of people that doesn't really make sense. They don't really relate to it. Whereas if you change it to, you know, remembrance of perfect love, or the true self, or God is pure formless awareness of perfect love, it sort of makes a bit more sense to a lot of people. That's why we've done these alternatives. Well, I've done it over the years of developing this program to just try and make it helpful for people to understand the original more clearly. Which you'll only get here, actually. No, these don't exist outside of this community. So it is something quite unique to this approach. There's many teachers of A Course in Miracles, but none, as far as I know, who have created an alternative translated version. Yeah. So yeah, the idea is to just, as you said, make the language a bit more accessible and so on, without changing the sense of what it's actually saying. And then I've also done summaries. So there's actually a summary at the end. If we get a chance to look at that, there's a summary which is in different language again. So you can get three takes on it: the original, the alternative, and then a summary version of it too. To really study it, you know, so you really start understanding it at a deeper level, which is what it's meant to be. You know, you study these things. All right, you're going, Elaine. All right, night,
Good
Elaine.
night, everybody.
See you
Yeah,
next
have a
week.
good night.
Night, Elaine.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good
Bye.
night, Elaine. Bye-bye.
All right, so let's crack on then. Number 3. So Haley, have you managed to get some glasses? Do you want to read with us, or?
Yeah, no, I have got my glasses. I found them.
You found them, great.
Right in my screen.
Okay, so if you want to read, I tell you what, you read the alternative, or actually there's much to change. So read the original.
So your part
from number 1, you just read one.
Just one line.
Yeah, exactly. From your part.
So your part is only to remember this: you do not want anything you value to come of a relationship.
Okay, and then someone else will read the alternative. So John, maybe you can read that in the alternative, number 1.
My part is only to remember this: I do not want anything I value to come of a relationship.
We'll scroll back up. So now read number 2, Haley.
You choose neither to hurt it nor to heal it in your own way.
I choose neither to hurt it nor to heal it in my own way.
Where are we? Number 3. You do not know what healing is.
3, yeah.
I do not know what healing is.
All you have learned of empathy is from the past.
All I have learned of empathy is from the past.
I'm just going to change that. I think everything I've learned. Just making it a bit more kind of normal language, you know, everything I've learned about empathy comes from the past. Number 5.
And there is nothing from the past that you would share, for there is nothing from the past that you would keep.
And there is nothing from the past that I want to share, but there is nothing from the past that I want to keep.
And where are we? 6.
Number 6.
Do not use empathy to make the past real, and so perpetuate it.
Perpetuate.
Perpetuate it.
Yeah.
I do not use empathy to make the past real and so perpetuate it.
Okay. Step gently aside and let healing be done for you.
I step gently aside and let healing be done through me.
Keep but one thought in mind and do not lose sight of it, however tempted you may be to judge any situation and to determine your response by judging it.
However tempted I may be to judge any situation and to determine my response by judging it, I keep only one thought in mind and do not lose sight of it.
Focus your mind only on this.
I focus my awareness only on this.
I am not alone and I would not intrude the past upon my guest.
I am not alone and I do not use the past to turn away my guest.
I have invited him and he is here.
I have invited this healing presence into my awareness and it is here.
I need do nothing except not to interfere.
I need not do anything except not to interfere.
Okay, so then Bakang, if you can read the alternative from the top and there's some commentary on that, that'd be good.
My part is only to remember this. I do not want anything I value to come out of a relationship. I choose neither to hurt it nor to heal it in my own way. I do not know what healing is. Everything I have learned about empathy comes from the past, and there is nothing from the past that I want to share, for there is nothing from the past that I want to keep. I do not use empathy to make the past real and so perpetuate it. I will step gently aside and let the healing be done through me. However tempted I may be to judge any situation and to determine my response by judging it, I will keep only one thought in mind and will not lose sight of it. I will focus my awareness only on this. I am not alone and I will not use the past to turn away my guest. I have invited this healing presence into my awareness and it is here. I need not do anything except not to interfere. In this alternative,
Okay, so thoughts on that? Thank
in the alternative, it's actually helping, the person that's empathizing, how to go through the process. It highlights that one actually need not to be attached to the process, and so, to create a valuable relationship from it. And I think that helps actually not to fall into the trap of sympathizing with the person or the guest. Also, it also highlights that it's important to actually, surrender to the process, keeping in mind that the process is mainly to actually help the other guest and let the Holy Spirit or perfect loving awareness to work through the person that's empathizing such that healing can actually come through. There's also an element of, detaching, to the process and not making the details of the, topic or talk real by not in whatever form trying to link that to the past or, making real whatever situation that has happened from the past to relate it to the present and perpetuate, the false reality. And then lastly, I think it actually helps, in that process by saying that in this process, one needs to realize that they are not alone. They actually invite, the presence of perfect love into the awareness of the present space and not allow, anything to interfere in the process. So it looks like it's actually a process where one surrenders to allow, the perfect loving awareness of Holy Spirit to work through and, let one bring healing to the other person or make them understand another perspective that will actually change them and pull them from where they are.
Yeah, well said. Very well explained. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yes, well explained.
Yep. Haley, happy? Yep, happy with that?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so let's go on to number 4 then. So Bakang, if you can read the original, Haley maybe read the alternative, sentence by sentence, and then John, you read the alternative and just give us a quick summary.
True empathy is of him who knows what it is.
True empathy comes from the remembrance of perfect love, which knows what it is.
You will learn his interpretation of it if you let him use your capacity for strength and not for weakness.
I will learn its interpretation of empathy if I let it use my capacity for strength and not for weakness.
He will not desert you, but be sure that you desert not him.
It will not abandon me, but let me be sure that I do not deny it.
Humility is strength in this sense only, that to recognize and accept the fact that you do not know is to recognize and accept the fact that he does know.
Humility is strength in this sense only, that to recognize and accept the fact that I do not know is to recognize and accept the fact that it does know.
You are not sure that he will do his part because you have never yet done yours completely.
I am not sure that it will do its part because I have never yet done mine completely.
You cannot know how to respond to what you do not understand.
I cannot know how to respond to what I do not understand.
Be tempted not in this, and yield not to the ego's triumphant use of empathy for its glory.
I am not tempted in this, and I do not yield to the belief in separations.
Sorry. Triumphant use of empathy.
Triumphant use of empathy for its glorification.
Okay, and then John, if you can read from the top in the alternative kindly.
True empathy comes from the remembrance of perfect love, which knows what it is. I will learn its interpretation of empathy if I let it use my capacity for strength and not for weakness. It will not abandon me, but I must be sure that I do not deny it. Humility is strength in this sense only, that to recognize and accept the fact that I do not know is to recognize and accept the fact that it does know. I am not sure that it will do its part because I have never yet done mine completely. I cannot know how to respond to what I do not understand. I am not tempted in this, and I do not yield to the belief in separation's triumphant use of empathy for its glorification. I'd rather have the word sympathy rather than.
Yeah, maybe. Good use of sympathy instead of empathy.
So it's saying here that we don't understand the fullness of empathy, and to some extent it is actually beyond us, because it isn't coming from us, it's coming through us from Holy Spirit. We can understand it better as we allow it to come through us and do its job.
Yeah. It's about letting go again, letting go of the separate self, letting go of all of its ways, its manipulations, its desire to aggrandize itself, and saying, well, I'm letting go of all of that and just opening my mind to the truth and allowing that to come through in my words, in my actions, and then we'll truly empathize. And it is an art form. Empathy is not an easy. It's not something that most people know how to do, because their ego comes in and it becomes sympathy. But this is what he's trying to train us to do, to come from a higher place that's truly helpful to the person and truly healing, rather than just diving into the illusion with them and making all of that real in a way that's sensitively done. It's tricky, because if you go in all guns blazing with a non-dual teaching, you just say, well, all of this is just a delusion. You're just dreaming. None of this is true. Most people are going to look at you and go, well, that's just horribly insensitive, and actually the very opposite of empathy. So one has to be guided as to how one approaches this by this voice that he calls the Holy Spirit, or remembrance of perfect love. And trust that the right words and so on will come when in the right situation. Okay, so happy with number 4. Any other thoughts or comments or questions on that one? Let's go to number 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so switch it around again. John, you do the original, and Bakang, you do the alternative, and then Haley, you can read the alternative from the top.
The triumph of weakness is not what you would offer to a brother, and yet oh, sorry.
Just one at a time, John.
Yeah.
One sentence at a time. Yeah.
The triumph of weakness is not what I want to offer to a companion.
And yet you recognize no triumph but this.
And yet I recognize no triumph but this.
This is not knowledge, and the form of empathy which would bring this about is so distorted that it would imprison what it would release.
This is not knowledge, and the form of empathy which would bring this about is so distorted that it imprisons what it seems to want to release.
The unredeemed cannot redeem, yet they have a redeemer.
The unawakened cannot awaken others, yet they have an awakener.
Attempt to teach him not.
I do not attempt to teach it.
You are the learner, he is the teacher.
I am the learner, it the teacher.
Do not confuse your role with his, for this will never bring peace to anyone.
I do not confuse my role with its, for this will never bring peace to anyone.
Offer your empathy to him, for it is his perception and his strength that you would share.
I offer my empathy, to the remembrance of perfect love.
Sorry.
Thank you, Jonah. I offer my empathy to the remembrance of perfect love, for I want to share its perception and its strength.
And let him offer you his strength and his perception to be shared through you.
And I let it offer me its strength and its
Perception.
and its perception. If you may please go down again, Jonah.
There we go. Why don't you see it?
Thank you. And its perception to be shared through me.
Okay. And Haley, if you can read that from the top, that in the alternative, kindly.
The triumph of weakness is not what I want to offer to a companion, and yet I recognize no triumph but this. This is not knowledge, and the form of empathy which would bring this about is so distorted that it imprisons what it seems to want to release. The awakened cannot awaken others, yet they have an awakener. I do not attempt to teach it. I am the learner. It's the teacher. I do not confuse my role with its, for this will never bring peace to anyone. I offer my empathy to the remembrance of perfect love, for I want to share its perception and its strength. And I let it offer me its strength and its perception to be shared through me.
Okay, so thoughts on that? What's he saying there in your own words?
I feel like love is the teacher.
Yeah.
Yes, I found it a little confusing. The awakened cannot awaken others, yet they have an awakener. I kind of feel like if you're awakened, you can inspire others. But
Yeah. The unawakened cannot awaken others. That's the
oh, sorry, I misread
unawakened,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Unawakened cannot awaken others, yet they have an awakener. I'll put that in capitals, the Redeemer. So again, changing the language. That awakener is this remembrance of perfect love, right? Inside everyone's mind is this memory of a perfect loving awareness, which we call God or spirit or the universe, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. But it's I think you called it soul the other day. It's the soul. It's the very essence of the person. That is immortal, that's indestructible. And it's the memory of that that then will guide us to have empathy, to think and speak and act in ways that are in alignment with that remembrance. And that's all the Holy Spirit is. It's the memory of that loving awareness, which is who we really are. So it's actually really, really simple stuff. Just the language often gets people a bit confused, and different traditions, spiritual traditions have different language, but it's actually all pointing to the same thing. There's this essence within every person that wants to be remembered. And our job in awakening is to remember that essence. Hence, it's called the remembrance of perfect love. And that guides us in the practicalities of our daily life. Okay, so we're now encountering sickness and pain and suffering, and people seem to be suffering. How do we relate to them? Well, you do it with the guidance of this memory of perfect love. You do it from that perspective, now offering true empathy rather than sympathy, which forgets love and says, well, the suffering is real. The separate self that's suffering is real, and I identify with that, and I make that all real for myself and for them. That's not a healing approach at all. Whereas the remembrance of perfect love remembers that perfect love is still there. And so a good example of this is Jesus himself. He was probably the greatest healer who's ever walked the earth, did these amazing miraculous healings, including raising the dead. But he's very empathetic. People resonated with him because he didn't, he wasn't unkind. He was, oh, you people are all asleep and just, get over your delusions. There was a great sense of empathy or compassion. In Buddhist teaching, they call this compassion. I would say it's pretty much, it's very similar, except that empathy realizes the delusion of it. Compassion often just is too close to sympathy. If there's a subtle difference in it, I would say that's probably it. Empathy says, I understand your delusion, but I don't enter into it. So Jesus understood the delusion of people, that they were in their illusion of a separate self, and they seemed to be suffering, and they had all the sin and guilt going on in their mind. And then he came to them and said, but actually that's not the case. Your sins are forgiven. He always started with that in his healing approach. Your sins are forgiven, meaning that the idea of sin and guilt that was really the cause of their suffering was not true. And because they believed he was the Messiah, they believed that, and then often these miraculous healings happen. Because as soon as they dropped that belief, that could then help them to free their mind from the effects of it. Right? So he went to root cause by saying your sins are forgiven, and helping them to really get that on a deep level. Then the healing happened spontaneously. And they didn't have this false belief in those days. They didn't have an allopathic medical system. They didn't have all the science that says, well, that's possible and that's not possible. But without those limiting beliefs, they could actually heal miraculously, which is what happened a lot. And he didn't really take credit for it. He just said, well, it's your faith that's made you well. It's because you've changed your mind. You've had the shift in perception. But he did it very empathetically. It was a demonstration of these teachings, which is why, we listen to him, why he's a great teacher, because he actually did it in a human life, in difficult circumstances and situations. And that's all recorded in the New Testament, in the Gospel, saying this is how he approached it, and this is the thought system now behind it. He never wrote anything in his lifetime, so he took 2,000 years to write a book to tell us, okay, here's actually how I did it. Here are all the principles, and it's actually a course in training your mind to think like him. That's what this course is, a course in miracles, course in changing one's mind to think differently and perceive differently. Okay, so any other thoughts on that? Does that make sense, Haley?
Yeah, it does.
Good. Okay, so let's crack on. How many we got? I think there's 7. Yeah, so we've got 2 more paragraphs and then a summary. So let's finish in the next half an hour, shall we? The meaning of love. So let's switch it up again. So Haley, maybe you want to read the original, and then Kang, you read the alternative, and John can do the summary. How does that sound?
Yep.
That's cool.
Okay.
The meaning of love is lost in any relationship that looks to weakness and hopes to find love there.
The meaning of love is lost in any relationship that looks to weakness and hopes to find love there.
The power of love, which is its meaning, lies in the strength of God that hovers over it and blesses it silently by enveloping it in healing wings.
If you can please go down, Jono. Thank you. The power of love, which is its meaning, lies in the strength of pure formless awareness of perfect love that hovers over it and blesses it silently by enveloping it in healing wings.
Let this be, and do not try to substitute your miracle for this.
I let this be, and do not try to substitute my correction for this.
I have said that if a brother asks a foolish thing of you, to do it.
I have said that if a companion asks a foolish thing of you, do it.
He says, I've said, he means, we just translate it. You notice we're doing in the first person. Something that has to change. The alternatives in the first person, Haley, because it makes it more practical and applicable. It's like, okay, so it's I will let this be, rather than you. So then we got to translate the first person, which is he's talking about himself. And I use his original name, Yeshua, rather than his anglicized name, because that was actually what his name was, Yeshua. Yeshua said, the companion asks a foolish thing of you, do it. Okay. But be certain this does not mean, yeah. So number 5.
But be certain that this does not mean to do a foolish thing that would hurt either him or you. For what would hurt one will hurt the other.
But be certain that this does not mean to do a foolish thing that would hurt either the person or me. For what would hurt one will hurt the other.
Foolish requests are foolish merely because they conflict, since they always contain some element of specialness.
Foolish requests are foolish merely because they conflict, since they always contain some element of specialness.
Only the Holy Spirit recognizes foolish needs as well as real ones.
Only the remembrance of perfect love recognizes foolish needs as well as the real ones.
Okay, number 8, and he will teach you.
Oh, and he will teach you how to meet both without losing either.
And it will teach me how to meet the real needs and let go of the foolish ones.
Okay, and John, from the top in alternative, kindly.
The meaning of love is lost in any relationship that looks to weakness and hopes to find love there. The power of love, which is its meaning, lies in the strength of pure formless awareness of perfect love that hovers over it and blesses it silently by enveloping it in healing wings. I will let this be and not try to substitute my correction for this. Yeshua has said that if a companion asks a foolish thing of you, do it. But I must be certain that this does not mean to do a foolish thing that would hurt either the person or me. For what would hurt one would hurt the other. Foolish requests are foolish merely because they conflict, since they always contain some element of specialness. Only the remembrance of perfect love recognizes foolish needs as well as real ones, and it will teach me how to meet the real needs and let go of the foolish ones.
Okay. So what's he saying?
Well, it's saying that if we go with empathy, calling upon strength, whereas sympathy is weakness, and we will never find love in weakness. And then he brings in this new theme of, if a companion asks you to do something, then, and provided it doesn't hurt anybody, do it.
Yeah, I think we discussed this actually. Remember in one of those
We
the ones
did. I know.
I
Yeah.
Companion asked me to do a foolish thing. I should do it. I must be certain. Then I think I mentioned the caveat was, which he mentions here. But I must be certain that this does not mean to do a foolish thing that would hurt either the person or me, for what would hurt one will hurt the other. So that's the caveat. Don't do it if it's going to hurt someone. So there has to be some sort of responsibility around that. So one must always, you got to read these things in the context of the whole course. You read that, and then you need to know what he said later on to kind of round it out and say, all right, I understand now more completely and more fully what he means. So there's always this, and that happens quite a lot in the course. He says one thing and then he'll say something else which qualifies it, or people can say, well, he's contradicting himself, but it's not really. He's just qualifying what he's saying, saying, okay, well, you have to have some wisdom about these things. Someone asks you to do a foolish thing and it's going to hurt them or you, then that's a request that the Holy Spirit can't agree to, because it's hurtful. For what would hurt one will hurt the other. That's the law of unity.
But there may be loads of requests that really are bonkers. I mean, they hurt nobody, but they're just silly, or don't help anybody.
Well, that's where, he's saying, then do it. If it's just a foolish request and it doesn't actually mean anything, then do it, because your resistance is saying that it does matter. But if it's going to hurt someone, then don't do it. And one has to have some discernment around that.
But if somebody says to me, come with me to Johannesburg tomorrow, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, and you probably have reasons to do that. But what he's trying to say really with this principle is that one shouldn't resist. If you go, no, I'm not going to Johannesburg because how dare you ask me to do that? I've got important things to do, and then that's your own ego coming in. So you might then say, okay, well, I'll go with that's probably something that would never happen, but I'll go with that because I'm just not resisting it. So let's take a more realistic example. A friend of yours says, John, do you mind coming over and helping me cook a meal or something? And you might go, well, that's a bit kind of random or arbitrary, but okay, it's not hurting anyone. So it's only my own resistance that's the problem here. So yeah, all right, I'll do it. If he asked you to do something that would be hurtful, then you would have to say no. So come over and help me help me commit suicide might be like, no, that's I can't help you with that, for instance. So again, these are the situations we're trying to make up to give examples, but our job is to be aware of these principles and then interpret them accordingly in situations that present themselves and say, okay, so when is it appropriate to say, look, it's just a foolish request, but it's not hurting anyone. So I'll drop my resistance to it and I'll just do it. When is that appropriate? When is it appropriate to say no because it's actually hurtful to someone? In which case I must refuse. But at least we have some guidance as to these decisions. If you're going on the ego's guidance, then you're going to have no clue about any of this, and you're just going to be making probably a foolish choice. If you say no because you're resisting, well, that's a foolish choice, which strengthens your ego. How dare that person ask me? Well, who's offended? Who's indignant? Only a special self, a separate self. So then you just strengthen the ego. Or you go with it and you say, okay, well, someone's asked me like a foolish request. This often happens with younger people, teenagers, and so on. Well, I dare you. I dare you to do that, and then they get them to do something stupid, which can often be very hurtful. My brother told me a story once. I'll give you an example of a foolish request. So these guys were somewhat inebriated. They're sitting having drinks next to a kind of a lake, just off a golf course, and there's crocs potentially in that lake. So the guys are like, well, I dare you to jump in and swim through it, right? So the guy, obviously inebriated, goes, okay, I'll do it. And he does it once, says, oh, I have a couple more drinks, I dare you to do it again. And he goes, okay, I'll do it again. And they dared him a third time, and he did it a third time, and then the croc got him. It's like, oh, you idiots. You know what I mean? Like, just that was a foolish request. It was potentially hurtful. And afterwards, the guys who dared him must have felt really guilty. That was just crazy. Why did we do that? Once, okay, and he got away with it. Why push it? And now, he's dead because he didn't know the difference between a foolish request and a real one, and something that was, and neither did we. So there's an example of a foolish request that you'd say no to because that could be hurtful. And quite an extreme one, but it did actually happen in practicality, and it resulted in the death of someone. It's because the guys didn't understand this. If they'd understood this teaching, they would never have asked him to do that. And he would have refused. He would have said, well, no, I'm not doing that because that could be hurtful. For what would hurt one will hurt the other. Because if I get taken by a croc, that's also going to hurt you. Well, why? Because now you've got the guilt that you're living with for the rest of your life. Like, well, what you did killed your friend. That's not an easy thing to live with. So there's a good example of how that can actually happen in so-called real life in the dream. All right. Can we go on to number 7? Last paragraph.
Yeah, I'll have to go after that, Jono.
Yes, we
Yeah,
can.
well, it's the last one, so no problem.
Yeah.
Let's finish it. So who would like to read the original and the alternative? Just switch it. So John, maybe read the original, Kang the alternative.
You will attempt to do this only in secrecy.
My separate self will attempt to do this only in secrecy.
And you will think that by meeting the needs of one, you do not jeopardize another, because you keep them separate and secret from each other.
And it will think that by meeting the needs of one, I do not jeopardize another, because I keep them separate and secret from each other.
That is not the way, for it leads not to life and truth.
That is not the way, for it does not lead to life and truth.
No needs will long be left unmet if you leave them all to him whose function is to meet them.
No needs will long be left unmet if I leave them all to the remembrance of perfect love, whose function is to meet them.
That is his function and not yours.
That is its function and not mine.
You will not meet them secretly, for he would share everything you give through him.
It will not meet them secretly, for it would share everything I give through it.
That is why he gives it.
That is why it gives everything that is real.
What you give through him is for the whole sonship, not for part of it.
That is why it gives everything that is real. What I give through it is for the whole extension, not part of it.
Leave him his function, for he will fulfill it if you but ask him to enter your relationships and bless them for you.
Therefore, I leave its function to it, for it will fulfill its function if only I ask it to enter my relationships and bless them for me.
Okay, and then Makang, if you can read the alternative on the top, give us some commentary on that.
My separate self will attempt to do this only in secrecy, and it will think that by meeting the needs of one, I do not jeopardize another, because I keep them separate and secret from each other. That is not the way, for it does not lead to life and truth. No needs will long be left unmet if I leave them all to the remembrance of perfect love, whose function is to meet them. That is its function, and not mine. It will not meet them secretly, for it would share everything I give through it. That is why it gives everything that is real. What I give through it is for the whole extension, not part of it. Therefore, I leave its function to it, for it will function its function if only I ask it to enter my relationships and bless them for me. Here, it actually helps us to actually deal with the issue of trying to allow ourselves to be able to control the empathy process, and also to actually help us to also understand that we need not jeopardize the process by thinking that we want to do things on our own. Meanwhile, we shouldn't. And lastly, it highlights the element of surrendering and trusting in the process, and knowing that through leaving everything to the remembrance of perfect love to function fully, the process will be effective in taking the person out of the situation.
Yeah. So it's about trusting, again, trusting the guidance, trusting this memory of perfect love that's within us to guide us and help us in how to be truly empathetic in the same way as Jesus was his times. There's no doubt he was really unconditionally loving, empathetic, and a highly effective healer. So he's a good example. The reason why he's our teacher is because he actually lived this. He did all this. In practice. And he learned how to interpret love into this world in a very helpful way. Okay, so any other thoughts or comments? We have a summary. Maybe we can just read that to summarize it without any commentary. It's just a page to wrap this up, and then we'll call the session to an end. Does that sound, John? Can you stay another 5 minutes and read this?
Yeah, 5 minutes, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Empathy,
just you read just the first paragraph, and then Bakang can read the second one, and so on.
empathy does not mean joining in suffering. The belief in separation's interpretation of empathy leads to destructive special relationships based on shared suffering. The remembrance of perfect love uses empathy differently, as it does not understand suffering and wants me to teach that it is not understandable. When it relates through me, it does not participate in pain or attempt to lighten it by entering into the delusion.
Okay. Yeah. There's a difference between sympathy and empathy. We discussed that. Sympathy makes the delusion real. Empathy says it's not real, but tries to help people out of the delusion, helps them to actually genuinely heal their mind. Okay, and Bakang, the second one, my role is to remember.
My role is to remember that I do not want anything I value to come from a relationship. I should not hurt or heal a relationship in my own way, as I do not know what healing truly is. I need to step aside and let the healing be done through me, focusing on the awareness that I'm not alone and that the healing presence of perfect love is already here with me. True empathy comes from the remembrance of perfect love, and I will learn its interpretation of all situations by allowing it to use my capacity for strength. I should not deny it or be tempted by my belief in separation's use of empathy for its glorification, but instead, I should be humble in accepting that I do not know how to heal while it does.
I do not offer the triumph of weakness to others in the form of sympathy, as this is not true love. Love's power lies in the strength of pure formless awareness of perfect love, which blesses relationships with healing. I will not substitute my own corrections for this. If someone asks something foolish from me, I should consider meeting their request as long as it does not cause harm to me or them. The remembrance of perfect love recognizes both real and foolish needs and will teach me how to meet real needs while letting go of foolish ones. I do not keep these needs separate from each other. Instead, I leave all needs to the remembrance of perfect love, allowing it to fulfill its function in meeting them for me. So I invite it into all my relationships and let it bless and heal them.
Yeah, nice. And then just the key message, Bakang, summarizes the whole thing in a couple of sentences.
My empathy is used under the guidance of the remembrance of perfect love, does not understand suffering, and I should teach by example that suffering is not understandable. I do this when I sit quietly and allow this loving awareness to direct my thoughts, words, and actions to be truly helpful to any person who is apparently suffering.
Yeah, so quite simple, really. Just ask for guidance, but we have to be aware of the ego's dynamics and be aware of what sympathy is as opposed to empathy to do that, which is what this section has done, really. So when next you're dealing with a situation where someone is suffering and pain and maybe they're asking for sympathy, then reflect on this and go, well, how, you ask for guidance. How do I be truly empathetic here? Show me what to say, show me what to do. It's going to actually truly be helpful to this person, not perpetuate the illusion of their ego. And that might be what the ego wants, but that's not actually helping them. You understand? It's realizing that it's about trying to help them out of the delusion. That's where healing comes. The ego may not welcome that, but your job is to offer that. And if they're not willing and they're not open, then well, you do your best. It doesn't mean that this is a magic wand and everyone's suddenly going to be open. But if you're guided by the Holy Spirit, you'll be guided as to how to handle the situation with empathy. So watch out in the next few days, week, for situations that arise that require empathy, because quite often you'll get that after something like this. You get a test in practice and say, okay, so this is exactly the kind of situation he's talking about, where I can use true empathy, or I could indulge in ego sympathy, and be aware, be vigilant for that, and try and apply true empathy in that situation. And yeah, let us know on the group or in our next session how that goes. Okay, so
Thank you, Jono.
yeah, all good. Any other comments or questions? Happy? Shall we call it there?
Yep.
Yep, I'm good with that. Yep.
Call it a
Very good,
night.
Jono. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bakang.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Bakang, for
John.
joining.
Thank you, Jono.
Yeah, join us next week. So generally Thursday, it's either Tuesday or Thursday. So I'll let you know, but probably Thursday next week is when we'll do the main session, where everyone joins. John, if you want to join any other time in the week, let me know, because you can, but just tell me the day before on the day. And I'll see you Tuesday, I think. Yeah, we've got a session on Tuesday, John.
Yep, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and Become, yeah. We're recording. Actually, you might want to join us for that. We're recording the first podcast on Tuesday evening at between 5 and about 6:30. So I'm going to open that. Elaine wants to join, so you can ask. I'm going to be the first guest. You can ask some questions at the end if you want to sit in. You're welcome to. Yeah, 5 o'clock. I'll put it in the group and in the email. We're doing the first episode of the podcast, which we're going to launch, called Life on Purpose. So join if you'd like to. But yeah, I'll see you Tuesday. I'll see you before that, so we can talk further about it then. 1 o'clock Tuesday, yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jono.
Jono.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Okay,
John.
speak soon.
bye.
Cheers.
Bye,
Bye.
Bakang. Namaste.
Bye, Jono.
All right.
Namaste.
Next
Bye.
week. Bye. Okay, so that is a wrap for today. Thank you to everyone who joined. If you enjoyed that session, a couple of things you can do. Hit the subscribe button to subscribe to any further episodes of this. I'm also launching a podcast next week, so I'll publish that on this channel as well, which will be once every 2 weeks. We're doing interviews with spiritual masters via ChatGPT. So subscribe and find out how that goes. Kind of an experiment for us, but should be interesting. And you can also go to lifebuild.com. You can see that in the background. Type in lifebuild and add a .com in your browser, and you can subscribe to join my Telegram group, which is completely free. You'll get a daily quote. You'll get a blog post on the quote, which leads into the daily lesson from the workbook of A Course in Miracles, as well as usually a short recording, call them breath breaks, to help you practice that lesson in just a few minutes, as well as invitations to join these live calls. So join us on the live calls, and the way to do this through the Telegram group. So check it out, lifeball.com. Sign up. You'll need Telegram downloaded on your mobile device, and just put in your mobile number, and then you're away, and I'll add you to the group. So I hope to catch you in the Telegram group or in one of these live sessions soon. And thanks for listening and watching. Namaste, which means the true self that empathizes truly, and me acknowledges and honors that same truly empathetic self in you. Bye for now.